Hello and welcome back. Came across some interesting information again this morning. I was walking into my office when our VP, Mark Krieger,
Quit now, run.
that guy, was laughing and he says, "Hey, come here really quick." And I look at his computer and it is a news story titled, "New South Carolina bill could limit HOA power by eliminating foreclosures." And we were both just thinking to ourselves, well, what does that mean? Does that mean that people in South Carolina don't have to pay their HOA fees anymore? Because what's the hammer if people don't pay their HOA fees? I'm really interested in getting into this video and watching it. So let's get right in and see what they have to say.
Unpaid fines to foreclosure. It's a route homeowners associations can take to make people follow their rules. But one South Carolina lawmaker is questioning whether HOAs should have this power. WMBF News reporter Samantha Coomer is live in studio to explain how this could change.
Yeah, good evening, Meredith. Foreclosure is an extreme action, usually the last enforcement measure to collect late dues and fines. But it also places a lot of power in the hands of associations that often lack regulations. A newly filed bill aims to strip back some of that power.
Okay, so right off the bat, associations have this power through the declaration, and the regulation is through the law. I could be wrong, and I should check with an attorney on this, but I believe it's statute that gives an association the authority to foreclose for non-payment of assessments. And so to reel that back really puts associations at a disadvantage, in my opinion.
And I've watched special needs kids getting thrown out of their homes because they couldn't afford the $5,000 bill.
I came across this very recently where I received a phone call from a news reporter who was going to run a story on a lady, 95 years old, change of management companies, and she didn't get the appropriate information for not opening up her mail or for lack of better understanding. Whatever the case was, that lady lost her home. The association ended up foreclosing on the home. Now, let's keep in mind that management companies are majority, can't say all, but the majority are not fair debt collection companies. We are restricted depending on what state you're in, and we're talking about South Carolina here, and I'm in Colorado. But there's going to be fair debt collection practices that have to be followed, and you need to be a licensed company to perform that fair debt collection. But I do not believe that you can discriminate. I believe that you have to follow the document specifically for everyone. And if there is an accommodation that needs to be made, that is outside of what I know, because I don't get into the legalities of the American Disabilities Act, I believe it's called. I don't know enough about the comment here, but if you know enough about it to have a conversation with me, I'd sure like to have you on.
For a $500 bill for dues, it ballooned into $5,000.
Haddon didn't want his face on camera, but is one of more than 50 residents who faced liens and later foreclosure in the Ashford Estates, a community in Horry County.
It's amazing how a management company can, or an HOA can just say, you know what, we're gonna slap you.
I'm glad she caught herself there, but the first thing she said was a management company. And then she said, or an HOA. Now, this is where a lot of people get confused. The management company is acting as agent for the association, following their documents that were put together for that community, and the homeowner signed stating that they understood before moving into the property. It is not the management company that is doing this foreclosure. It is the documents of the association and the corporation, which is the association.
And keep adding on to it and adding on to it, and then actually foreclose on your home. It makes you really upset that someone could take away something you've worked so hard for.
Both Douglas Jackson and Hatton are on their HOA board and say they understand bills need to be paid, but say there are other ways of enforcing it.
You got a big problem here. If you want to collect your money, you can throw a lien against it. There's other methods of collecting the dues for the organization.
He's not alone.
Okay. I'd love to hear what those methods are. And I know what they are. But what I think is unfair reporting right here is that he makes a statement and doesn't follow up with what those methods are to collect the fees. What other than foreclosure? It really is a hammer to force those who refuse to pay their HOA fees. And I get the empathy for those that may be disabled or elderly. I understand that. We're working as neighbors, and we can't lose sight of that conversation either. But I feel the majority of those who fall behind on their assessments do not fit in those categories.
And thinking foreclosure is too far, too powerful. This month, Representative Todd Rutherford pre-filed a bill to prohibit HOAs from foreclosing on homes and from selling the property. This law would help people like Hatton and Douglas Jackson, but leaves others wondering how residents will be held accountable.
Most of the time are all adults and they do what they're supposed to do, but you've always got one usually that doesn't, and how do you enforce that? So would be the question. I can see where it would be problematic.
She says while this foreclosure is the last resort, without enforcement of dues, an entire organization could suffer.
If people didn't pay their dues, you can't pay your bills. So ultimately, in a worst case scenario, you wouldn't be able to pay your electric bill or pay to have the pool cleaned. And so that will ultimately affect all of the co-owners of an association.
She said,
I absolutely agree with her.
this law could end up being a bad thing. However, Allie deals with mostly condos. The proposed bill would only apply to primary homes, to people like Hatton and Douglas Jackson, who were forced to pay money for a lawyer when their HOA took action against them.
Because you're taking homes from people who can't afford an attorney to fight you.
What I just heard there is that this bill would not affect condo associations. It would affect single-family homeowner associations. I believe that's what I just heard there.
Keep their home. It's just cold-hearted.
Reach out to the representative who filed the bill, but he hasn't gotten back to me. Again, this bill is only at the pre-filed stage. It will be January at the earliest before any action or discussion will happen.
Well, that is interesting. I understand that this is a bill that's in the early adoption stages. However, I think it would be detrimental for, even if it's HOAs, single-family HOAs. For those associations, it's an out to those members to not have to pay their fees. So we'll be following the story and following up on it in the future, because I'm going to be tracking this one. I'm really interested to see what happens here, because if it happens in this state, I'm afraid it may spread, and I really think that would be bad for the industry. So hope you found value in this video. As always, if you can, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It sure helps me out a lot. And until next time, I look forward to bringing you more educational content. Thank you.